breaking news in the Middle East. Those new U.S. retaliatory strikes in just the last hour, killing a key commander after the deaths of U.S. troops in Jordan. We're going to take you live to the region with more on how it happened and what comes next. Then the massive search and rescue out west for 5 Marines whose military helicopter disappeared in the middle of a huge storm. The chopper found. The Marines still missing. The latest on the hunt to try to save them next. And the scramble on Capitol Hill to try to pass a backup plan to get more money to Israel and Ukraine or not after the border bill went down in flames. So what now? Is this a race to nowhere? Can Congress actually even function? Many questions, very few answers as we go big picture coming up. Plus, why some people are paying nearly $20 for a Big Mac. And how an imprisoned former prime minister is using AI to campaign from his jail cell. We'll explain in tonight's original later on in the show. So we've got to get to that major breaking news first, just into us from the Middle East, with the U.S. military launching a new drone strike in Iraq. I want to show you some of the aftermath here. We are just getting in some of these images. You can see what seems to be a car on fire. The Pentagon says this strike has killed a senior militant commander who they say was directly responsible for planning that deadly attack on U.S. troops at a base in Jordan a couple weeks ago. Now, this latest move, again, the fallout you're seeing there, builds on the first round of retaliatory strikes in response to that attack that, remember, killed 3 American service members and hurt 40 more. And while this is all happening in Iraq, we've got to paint the bigger regional picture for you here, too, as it relates to what's happening in Gaza. Because these Iran-backed militias say as long as Israel keeps up the fighting there, these other groups will keep up their attacks in other places, maybe against Americans. So where does that Israel-Hamas war stand? It seems like hope is slipping away for a potential ceasefire. The U.S. Secretary of State, Tony Blinken, he's in Israel tonight, trying to piece together a deal that is not looking super promising because Israel's prime minister is rejecting the new offer from Hamas. We've got team coverage tonight. Raf Sanchez is live for us in the region in Tel Aviv. Gabe Gutierrez is posted up at the White House. Let's take you to the region first. Raf is standing by. What else do we know about this new strike and about the fallout?
Hallie, this strike taking place at about 9:30 p.m. local time in Iraq, 1:30 Eastern, and it took place in eastern Baghdad. As you said, it appears to have targeted a car, and U.S. Central Command is saying inside was a senior commander with Kata'ib Hezbollah. Now, this is one of the many Iranian-backed militant groups operating across the Middle East, and the U.S. saying this commander was directly responsible for planning and ordering this wave, or part of this wave of attacks against U.S. forces that we have seen since the start of the war in Gaza. Of course, the deadliest, that attack at that Tower 22 base in Jordan, killing 3 U.S. service personnel. The initial wave of American strikes starting on Friday in eastern Syria and in western Iraq. But the Biden administration was really clear that that was just the beginning and that these strikes would continue. And tonight we are seeing those strikes continue. Hallie.
So fill us in then on as we talk about the bigger regional picture, Raf, where things stand with the potential then for a ceasefire. It seems like you described it, I think, to me one night recently. It stops and starts and stops and starts. It seems like we were at a stop again.
We are at something of a stop, Hallie, and Secretary of State Blinken here in Tel Aviv just a short while ago, trying to put a brave face on this, insisting that there is still a path forward. Here's the state of play. 10 days ago or so, CIA Director Bill Burns helped hammer out this proposal agreement, a framework. We earlier today got the detailed Hamas counteroffer to that. They're looking for a 4.5-month ceasefire that leads to a full ceasefire and the withdrawal of all Israeli forces from the Gaza Strip. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu calling those demands delusional, saying Israel will not end the war in Gaza until it achieves total victory. And you heard the Secretary of State towing pretty delicate diplomatic line earlier, saying that while there are some, quote, non-starters in Hamas's counterproposal, he believes there is still a path forward. It is not clear how that path is going to work, but the secretary says he will follow it relentlessly. Hallie.
Raf Sanchez live for us there in Tel Aviv. Raf, thank you. Gabe, let me get to you at the angle from the White House here. And President Biden's calculations. We knew that this series of retaliatory strikes would be just that, a series, because White House officials had described it as a campaign. It seems like this is obviously a part of that whole.
Yeah, certainly, Hallie. This is something that White House officials have been saying now for quite some time, that the U.S. would respond at a time and place of our choosing. Now, we are not expecting a formal statement from President Biden this evening. He is right now at fundraisers in New York City. But what he said several days ago is what White House officials are stressing. Let all those who might seek to do us harm know this. If you harm an American, we will respond. And Hallie, of course, this comes after the White House tries to strike that delicate balance after the death of those 3 American service members. The first attacks on Friday. Then there were also a separate round of attacks not directly related to the death of those 3 service members that the U.S. carried out on Saturday. That was against the Houthi militia group in Yemen. But you see right there, those 3 Americans are what the White House are, these attacks, this campaign of attacks, which the White House says will now could potentially continue for quite some time, and we expect them to continue over the next days and weeks potentially. But this is all part of that response to the death of those 3 American service members, and the White House is trying to calibrate its response so it does not escalate this into a wider war throughout the region, Hallie.
Do we have any indication, Gabe, here? And I know that the White House is not going to reveal next steps as it relates to a military campaign or any potential strike here. But broadly speaking, on what happens if these militias, these Iran-backed militants, do continue to hold steady here and these threats to keep up their attacks?
Well, certainly, Hallie, that is a big concern. And as you know, the U.S. has responded previously to these militia groups for quite some time. There have been more than 160 attacks from these groups to U.S. forces and also commercial ships in the Red Sea since October. And the president himself has acknowledged that the U.S. responses so far have not deterred them. Now, the question is, how far does the U.S. go? There are some that have suggested, some Republicans, that perhaps that the U.S. should come out with a stronger response and perhaps strike targets inside Iran. The National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, in an interview on Beat the Press this weekend, did not rule that out, but also was very careful not to telegraph the next steps. And they range from a wide variety of options, Hallie, that include potentially a cyber attack, potentially more of these targeted strikes that we've been seeing now over the last several days. But certainly, as you well know, Hallie, the White House doesn't want to telegraph exactly what yet, only to say that they will respond at a time and place of their choosing, and we expect that to continue over the coming days, Hallie.
Gabe Gutierrez, live for us there on the North Lawn. Gabe, thanks. Right now, the race against time to try to find 5 missing Marines whose helicopter flew through a dangerous winter storm out west but never got to where it was going. It's all developing super quickly. Here's what we know. These Marines plan to fly from an Air Force base about an hour north of Vegas to a Marine Corps station in San Diego. You see it there on the map. Now, officials say at this point, as of late today, they have eyes on the helicopter that has crashed in Pine Valley. You see it there? That's about 50 miles east of where they were going. They haven't spotted any of the 5 Marines. These troops, these Marines, run a CH-53E Super Stallion. That's what it's called. It's similar to the ones that you're seeing here. This is a chopper that's seen its share of issues in the last few years. One of the big problems with the search right now, it is still snowing, still raining. They can't look from the air, and it's not even easy terrain to look through in the first place.
It's rugged terrain out here. There's lots of rocks. There's truck trails that go through the area, but in the mud and the snow, it can become treacherous to travel.
All of it's leading to new questions now about the safety of the military's helicopters. Remember, this is happening just a couple months after 8 service members died in Japan when an Osprey crashed. So that entire fleet was grounded. Dana Griffin is live for us in Pine Valley, California, that city that you saw on the map there. You are there at the scene. Dana, what do we know tonight?
Hallie, hi. Right now, they are still searching for those 5 missing Marines. In an area just beyond us, we tried driving up that way, and as you described, it is very snowy, and there's even a gate that closes off that part of the forest where they are searching. Now, they started that search late last night when this helicopter went missing from radar around 11:30 p.m. This helicopter left Creech Air Force Base north of Las Vegas, heading to the Marine base here in Miramar. They searched, could not find anything. They started again at first light, including additional resources, local resources, including the U.S. Border Patrol, CAL FIRE and the San Diego Sheriff's Office. They still have not found those 5 missing Marines, but we are told they found that aircraft around 9 o'clock this morning. Now, again, as you mentioned, they were flying a CH-53E Super Stallion. That is known for carrying heavy equipment. And right now, we do not know how that search is going, if they have found them. But hopefully, Hallie, there is some hope. But just kind of looking around here and seeing some of the search and rescue crews, some of them have very grim looks on their face, so obviously very concerned at this hour. Hallie?
Just very difficult, very emotional. And when it comes to this particular helicopter, some questions here. The Super Stallion, as it's called, as we explained, Dana. Explain that piece of it, because it's had some trouble recently.
Exactly. So this particular aircraft has been in operation since the 80s, and we're told, or based on a report by Task and Purpose, only about 28.5% of the Marines' 174 CH-53Es can fly on any given day. And this is part of an investigation, because back in January 2016, there was a crash between 2 of those helicopters that killed 12 Marines. And the helicopter has been told that it needs more service, and that's why the military spent millions of dollars trying to fix some potential mechanical troubles with this particular helicopter. And a reminder, there was bad weather in the area. San Diego County got slammed with those atmospheric river systems that moved in last week and this week. So there is a concern that heavy rain and snow could have played a role in this. That's obviously going to be part of this investigation. So what caused this helicopter to crash, and why these military members are still missing is a big question, Hallie. We hope to update you pretty soon.
Yeah, we're hoping for that update, Dana. So many people are. Dana, live for us there in California. Dana, thank you. So listen, it's that big storm out west making that search and rescue harder. And this storm that's already turned deadly in California. 4 people killed in all after somebody drowned in a river that was higher than usual. 3 other people were killed by falling trees. With this messy mix of snow and rain, look at that, meaning super muddy conditions, with nearly 500 mudslides across the state. And so much rain that 8 million gallons of raw sewage spilled out onto the streets and beaches of L.A. I want to get to meteorologist Bill Cairns now. And if all this wasn't enough, there is another storm on the way, Bill, right?
Yeah, this one's a quick hitter. And normally this would be like, okay, it's going to rain in L.A. It's going to be in the middle of the night. By the time you wake up, it'll be fine. But the fact that so many hillsides are just barely holding on right now, this additional storm will make them give way. And that's why we have concerns tonight. So here's where the storm is currently located. It just went through San Francisco. San Francisco is now done. It's almost over the top of Sacramento, heading here into the southern portions of the Central Valley. And so it's over Interstate 5, exiting Hollister. When you see the yellows and reds, and this is very heavy rainfall, but it's moving. The last storm was stalled. This is not an atmospheric river. This is like your typical storm that moves in and moves out. So here's the timing on this. And of course, we're going to keep our eyes on Los Angeles and Southern California. Those are the areas that had the heaviest rainfall earlier this week and over the weekend. So for the rest of today, there's this line of rain I just showed you. So we're going to take that through about 8 p.m. It rolls through Los Angeles right around midnight to about 2 a.m. By 8 a.m., it's gone. It's done. It's out of Southern California. And then it's going to move through Arizona and Utah. So what does this all mean? Well, we do think areas in Los Angeles should be relatively safe from flooding from this quick half-inch to inch of rain. But from Riverside to Irvine southwards, all the way down through San Diego down to the Mexico border, this is the area of greatest concern. This is where it's still been raining over the last 2 days, where in Los Angeles the rain's kind of let up a little bit. We could get another half an inch to an inch from San Diego all the way up to Los Angeles, and the mountains could get about 3 to 5 inches out of this, Hallie. So I don't expect this to cause as many problems as we just had with the last storm. And as you mentioned, you know, almost 500 mudslides. This one easily could trigger another 40, 50.
Ugh, and even the prospect of that, thinking about that, Bill, that's tough to listen to. Thank you very much. I know you'll keep us posted. Back to Washington now, and the slowly sinking ship that is the Senate border bill that now has everything in it but actual border stuff. Any minute, we're going to see this key procedural vote. You're looking at the Senate floor live now, as some are trying to save what it can from this bill before it is fully underwater. Part of what could be a pointless process to show that they can actually get something done. Can they? So what's in this bill? It is stripped down. Look at that big X. No more border stuff, but they are trying to salvage some other pieces to this that some senators see as critically important, like more money to help Ukraine and Israel and Taiwan, desperately needed humanitarian help for Gazans, new steps to fight the trafficking of deadly fentanyl. It's all happening after the support for the big thing you saw the X over, the border measures. That was torpedoed by Republicans, even though they were the ones who said that border security was their top priority. If you're like, wait a second, Hal, this kind of sounds dysfunctional. Well, let me tell you about something else that has happened over the course of the last 24 hours. Two big failures in the House as Republicans failed to impeach the Homeland Security Secretary, as they hoped to do, or pass aid for Israel. So, despite the gridlock, despite the chaos, at least one of the four members who helped tank that impeachment vote seemingly brushed off some concerns about how voters might react to this. Watch.
The big vote you took, you worried about implications back at home?
I mean, that can't be the North Star that guides your votes on matters of principle.
NBC's Ryan Nobles is live for us on Capitol Hill. So I think, listen, there's a lot of micro stuff we could talk about here. We'll start with that, but I want to get to the macro. Just gut check on this vote, this key procedural vote. It's not the vote, but it is a vote to move it forward. Is it going to pass or not? What do you know?
I mean, I wouldn't bet my house on it, Hallie. I think it's very much an open question right now. There's a step between this vote that's occurring right now, which I think is somewhat of a test as to whether or not there are 60 votes to get to the next stage, and it is short of 60 votes right now. So I think the odds are that Republicans are at least girding up to even kill this measure without the border provisions included, even though many of them have said that they want to see funding for Israel and Ukraine. I mean, it's really difficult to get anything done right now in the current environment we are here in Washington. So if you've got to choose between something passing and something not passing at this stage of Congress that we're in right now, I'd take the not passing. But we'll have to see what happens.
What stage of Congress are we in, Ryan? Because I think to the external viewer, it seems like the stage where very little things can actually get done in an election year. Are they wrong?
No, I think they're very right if that's their interpretation of what's happening here. Listen, you know, Hallie, I've covered Capitol Hill for a significant amount of time. I'm by no means the most veteran
100
reporter
years.
here. Yeah, but I've never seen it as bad as it is right now. And I mean, I've covered state houses, I covered New York, Virginia. So I've been through legislative malaise before, and this is a level of which I've never seen before.
But can I just? I'm so interested to hear you say that, because you are, you're such a pro on this, Ryan, and we're so lucky to have you. And I'm thinking back to when you and I would talk last year, when we had the whole motion to vacate Kevin McCarthy. There was this speaker removal we hadn't seen. There were these looming government shutdowns. I mean, it's not like this Congress or Congress, period, hasn't had crises recently. Yeah. There was a point when it seemed like, okay, Speaker Johnson's in, kind of chill vibes. Maybe he's uniting people. Like, help us understand the arc and how we should be thinking about this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that perhaps there was some hope that with, Kevin McCarthy's toxic relationship with his conference removed from the equation, that somehow that would make things better. But, at some point we have to believe House Republicans when they tell us that they really don't want to see anything passed. I talked to one member of the far right, Eli Crane, today, who told me today that he kind of thinks the government should shut down because he thinks that would send a message. And time and time again, when given the opportunity to find some sort of bipartisan consensus, the hard right of the Republican Party just blows the whole thing up. And that is just continuing time after time. And there was some sort of glimmer of hope with Speaker Johnson, but if you actually look at what's happened since he became the Speaker, it's all been kind of incremental steps. They've passed a couple of short-term resolutions just to keep the government open, but they really haven't done anything major yet. When confronted with major things like they are right now, everything seems to be falling apart. And listen to what Steve Womack, who is a McCarthy ally, but a Republican who's kind of the conscience of the Republican Party, listen to what he said about the current state of things.
When you are handed the keys to the, to the kingdom, as it were, when you have the majority, there is an expectation that you will be able to govern, and we have just struggled with that over and over again. It's a big leadership challenge that we need to find a solution for.
So what is that solution, Hallie? I don't think anybody up here knows the answer to that question. And I do think Mike Johnson is a man of integrity and good conscience. I think he wants to make the situation better. But he's been dealt a very difficult hand with a very slim majority and a group of hard-right Republicans who are going to use that leverage point every possible opportunity that they have.
Ryan Nobles, we're glad to have you explaining it all, decoding Congress for us here on the show. Thanks, Ryan. I appreciate it. Let's get to some new data out today showing that for the first time in 2 decades, the U.S. is buying more stuff from Mexico than from China. So it's more likely that the toys, the shoes you're buying are made there. And businesses are turning to our southern neighbor for things like car parts, raw manufacturing materials. So why is this happening? A couple factors. End of the pandemic, one. And 2, years of escalating tensions between Washington and Beijing. Brian Chung is joining us now to break this down. This has only happened a couple times in recent history, right? Only twice in the last 30 years have we seen trade between the U.S. and China drop like this. Back in 2018, and then again during the Russian invasion of Ukraine with some sanctions. What's the dynamic now, and what can we expect?
Well, as you mentioned, there are a few things here. There's the politics, but there's also COVID as well as some other factors here. So let me explain. As you mentioned, interesting to see that Mexico eclipsed China in terms of major trade partners with the United States. Trade with China, get this, down 20%. Mexico went up by almost 5% just between 2022 and 2023 as well. We need to chart this out to understand the context. So check this out, right? Again, China in the blue line here, Mexico in the yellow line here. These are imports coming into the United States from those two respective companies. And take a look at China. It's been kind of bouncing up and down. You see 2018, the trade war with Trump having initiated against China. But then we saw that rebound post-2020, and a lot of that was because Americans were buying a lot of things after they were trapped inside for a year, went out, bought a lot of goods. A lot of that came from China. So some of the come down that we're seeing here is just a normalization of Americans not needing to buy as many goods, not doing that revenge spending anymore. But another interesting thread here that could be part of the gravity down is that the Biden administration didn't scrap some of the tariffs that were put in place by the Trump administration prior to that. So there's some of that factor as well. But I want to point out also, Mexico, as the trade relationship has changed, they've really been rocketing up. You could see the trend line over time. And actually, China, you've been seeing that it's kind of stagnating over the last, let's call it 5 or 6 years. A big reason for that, China shifting to a services-based economy instead of as a major exporter to the rest of the world. So what does this all mean? Well, for things like auto parts, toys, shoes, raw materials, things that we used to get from China, well, we're getting it from other places. Not just Mexico, as I mentioned, but check out the EU, South Korea, India, Canada, Vietnam as well. So maybe this strengthens the United States relationships with these countries. But I do want to point out, just because they're coming from those countries doesn't necessarily mean China doesn't have a role in them. We have to remember they still are oftentimes the producers of the raw materials that go to countries like India or Vietnam that then get exported to the United States. So a decoupling in some cases, but of course, a lot of nuance in what is still very much a global economy, Hallie.
Super interesting. Brian Chung, big news, of course, there today with those numbers out. Appreciate it. Also big news is we're hearing for the first time from the head of Disney in an exclusive interview with CNBC's Julia Boorstin in just the last hour about a new streaming service that could totally change how you watch sports. Bob Iger saying tonight that, like Disney Plus, like Hulu, it is their way to get ready for a world beyond cable.
We've been preparing for a world where that business is not as strong as it used to be. All of these things are prepared for us to pivot as well as the world changes, as the world is disrupted. And by the way, I'd rather be a disruptor than to be disrupted.
So what's Disney doing? They're teaming up with both Fox and Warner Brothers Discovery here. And you see all the channels you're going to get if you sign up for this proposed streamer: ESPN, ABC, Fox, TBS, TNT. Not just sports, but like everything that's on all of those channels, right? There's still a lot we don't know here. Like, importantly, what does it cost? Who's going to run it? Is it going to be here by football season next year? Are the leagues okay with this? I want to bring in CNBC's Alex Sherman. Do we have any answers to any of those questions, Alex, based on the reporting that you've been doing with sources, with analysts?
Certainly not officially to any of them. I can tell you that a couple sources that I spoke to late last night did give a price range for me. They said, look, this is not going to be some $30 a month product. It's going to be more than that. Now, one person I spoke to said a logical price may be somewhere around the $45 range. So you can think of this as sort of a skinny bundle of cable networks. You know, if YouTube TV charges about $73 a month for a more standard bundle of cable TV, you may pay upwards of $80 to $100 for cable, depending on what your provider is. So look, if it's $40 or $45, that's going to be about half the price you pay for cable, and you will get a smaller selection of networks. But importantly, you'll get ESPN, and that's really the driver here.
Yeah.
Up until today, the only way to access the full slate of games in ESPN has been to subscribe to the big cable bundle. So this is a first. This will be the first time you're able not to have to do that. And what Disney announced today is they're actually going to give you a second way in the fall of 2025 to get ESPN. That will be its flagship ESPN streamer service. Disney has hinted about this for, at least a year now that it was coming, but we finally have a date to it. So 2 new ways now to get ESPN beyond the traditional cable bundle.
Of course, the question is, right, given everything you've just laid out, is the conflict that it seems to raise with some of these, with cable, right? And Iger said, he made clear with Julia that they're not abandoning it altogether. But he did respond to that question. Let me play it.
What we're creating here is a distribution mechanism to reach consumers, where they are today, basically app-based entertainment. I think this was a step that we felt was one that we not only wanted to take, but the one that we really should take.
And to kind of cut through it, Alex, and to pull on the thread that you laid out there in the previous part of our discussion here, is this, at its simplest terms, is this basically cable light minus NBC and CBS? I mean, is that what Disney's trying to do here? And is there an appetite for something like that?
Yeah, look, I mean, there are other cable networks that won't be a part of this too, AMC, A&E, sure, Hallmark, et cetera. But yeah, the two biggest ones are no Paramount Global and their suite of CBS and all the cable networks that go along with that, Nickelodeon, MTV, et cetera, and no NBC Universal. And so that's probably near-term bad news for both of those companies because they won't be a part of this. But you can think of this as a skinnier tier of cable. So that's to Bob Iger's point. It's not going to replace cable. In fact, I think it's very much an open question how many people actually want this. Because if you don't have cable at all, it may be a sign you're not interested in live sports. So it's this sort of slice of people that are willing to pay, say, $40 a month for live sports, and also probably Netflix and a bunch of other streamers. So the price tag starts to get up there fairly quickly, but also don't want traditional cable, which includes NBC and CBS, which has a bunch of sports, certainly, right, football and all sorts of things. So it's that weird slice of person that's content with almost all sports, but not all of them, but also like sports enough to pay $40+ a month for this.
Well, we will see how Bob Iger's bet pays off. Alex Sherman, glad to have you on the show, as always. Thank you. Coming up, what Nikki Haley is saying today after losing to nobody. She literally lost to the nobody option in Nevada's Republican primary. Plus, a big train derailment in Colorado. What we're learning tonight about the hazmat response in just a second. Why some people are paying $18 for a Big Mac. We'll get to that in just a second. But first tonight, Nikki Haley is out campaigning for the first time in a Super Tuesday state, and it's a big one, California. But some supporters of former President Trump showed up outside. They've been doing that, some of his supporters at some of her events. This is in Orange County. You see them there yelling, some booing, holding up Trump 2024 signs and flags. Here's Haley's response.
There are more of us than there are of them. They may be louder, but we're mightier.
This is all after a not unexpected loss for Haley in Nevada's Republican presidential primary. Not the caucus tomorrow, the primary last night. She didn't lose to her main opponent in this Republican presidential race, Donald Trump. She lost to no one. That's right, the option that says none of these candidates. The race, technically just symbolic, but we break down what it means for Haley. The winner in Nevada's primary, technically no one.
I'm on the fence with nobody.
That's literally who won. Nobody. The option that says none of these candidates. And that's seen as a win for former President Trump, who wasn't even on the ballot. The primary last night, remember, was only symbolic for Republicans. It's the caucuses tomorrow that count toward the 26 delegates at stake in this state. And Donald Trump's all but certain to lock up those. But Trump backers, who pushed the none of the above option, hoped to deny Haley even just the bragging rights of a symbolic win.
Theoretically, a symbolic win could have given her another lifeline, but losing to none of the above ends up really hurting her campaign and any momentum going forward, whether on the fundraising front or when it comes to media attention.
But Haley's not concerned. She's long said she hasn't been focused on Nevada after the state party chose to also hold caucuses, seen as more favorable to Mr. Trump, with his more loyal supporters more likely to show up.
We didn't spend a day or a dollar there. We weren't even worried about it. It's why we haven't talked about it.
Her campaign looking ahead to the contest to come, saying in a new statement, "We didn't bother to play a game rigged for Trump. We are full steam ahead in South Carolina and beyond." But before that election in South Carolina later this month comes Nevada's caucuses tomorrow, where former President Trump has campaigned and has predicted victory already, boosted by his backers pledging to show up.
I voted none of the above for the primary here, and I'll be at the caucus on Thursday.
And in another signal, there's been all these questions, right? Is Nikki Haley going to stay in this race through Super Tuesday? Her team today is announcing a new leadership team in Massachusetts, one of 7 states her campaign manager says Haley is targeting for that election early next month. We'll stay on top of all things politics, as always, but let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, Russia, seemingly feeling more and more isolated because of its war with Ukraine, is teaming up with China in the Arctic, which is raising some national security concerns here in the U.S. A new private intelligence report says while Russia didn't really want China there, now it thinks this could be a potential counterbalance to alliances led by America. Number 2, the Biden administration is putting in place stronger standards for deadly pollution from stuff like tailpipes and smokestacks. The EPA says this could prevent thousands of premature deaths every year, while industry groups say it could hurt manufacturing jobs and maybe even lead to the shutdown of power plants. Number 3, ever wanted to skip a late-night call or text from your boss? Me, personally, never. I would never do that. But Australia wants workers to be able to ignore unreasonable messages from their bosses after hours and then fine any bosses that don't listen. This bill is going to be introduced in the parliament in Australia later this week, and a government official says a majority of senators there support it. Number 4, the Guinness Book of World Records tells NBC they're going to reconsider denying the prize to a guy in France who spent 8 years making this Eiffel Tower that's 2 feet taller than the world record out of more than 700,000 matchsticks. So it's an Eiffel Tower built from matchsticks that's enormously tall. But Guinness said the matchsticks weren't commercially available. So this guy says he followed the rules. Maybe he'll get that record. We'll see. Number 5, Coke is out with a new drink. You ready for it? Spiced Coca-Cola. What does spiced mean? I don't know. Nobody in Coke hasn't said. Apparently, it kind of tastes like raspberries. There's also a 0 sugar version. It is Coca-Cola's first new permanent drink in North America in 3 years. Coke says it's trying to bring in the next generation of consumers. Will you be a part of that next generation? Spicy Coke, or I guess spiced Coke. Maybe like a chai Coke? I don't know. We'll see. All the news you ever would want to need right here on this show. Coming up, what happens when a solar eclipse collides with a Major League Baseball team's opening day? So inflation seems to be coming for your favorite fast food, with some folks getting fed up, skipping the drive-thru. Look at this. In some spots, a Big Mac meal can set you back as much as $18 at one Connecticut location. Now, it's a rest stop, so, take that for what it is. But the Egg McMuffin is $7. If you zoom out a little bit, the price of going to restaurants or getting takeout overall is up 5%. That's higher than the overall rate of inflation. Christine Romans is joining us now. So in plain English speak, Christine, we've been talking about how inflation generally overall is cooling. That seems to not be the case for fast food. But so how is it that the stuff that's supposed to be our cheap eats isn't actually that cheap anymore?
Yeah, it isn't. And quite frankly, it's labor costs and those food inputs that these fast food execs have been passing on to consumers. And I think consumers have hit peak inflation fatigue. They're saying, hey, wait a minute, $12, $13, $14 to run with my kids to get a couple things. That's not cool. And you see, even in the McDonald's earnings, the CEO says, look, we notice that people who make 45 grand or less, it's cheaper for them to go buy groceries than to eat here. They're not eating here as much because they'd rather go to the grocery store because grocery prices are actually, in some cases, falling. So I think it's peak inflation fatigue, and you really see it at these fast food places.
Let's say these prices start to go back down, right? Because inflation overall is starting to cool off. If the prices come down, are these companies incentivized to then lower prices? We often talk about corporations jacking them up. I feel like it's way less common to be like, wow, that's cheaper than I thought it would be.
So here's what they're doing. They've been trying to get a broader income spectrum of customer, right? So they've been, kind of glamming up their burgers and offering some new franchise, like Cosmix, and a lot of other companies are doing this too. But what you're seeing now is, like, for example, Taco Bell. They are saying they have 10 things on their $3 or less menu, their value menu, and they're really promoting the cheap stuff again. And McDonald's saying this is gonna be the year of affordability. We get it that people want value and affordability, so you'll see some lower price options probably on that menu as well. And you know, you look at many of the other places, they've seen foot traffic down, they've seen sales that disappointed. Every place but Chipotle, Haley. Chipotle raised prices 10% and saw sales and foot traffic rise. So Chipotle bucking the trend. A lot of these other companies are saying, okay, we get it. People are sick of inflation. We got to give them some cheaper. We have to make fast food cheap again.
So what are we supposed to do if we have a hankering for a little, you know, bean burrito?
So, look, some of these places are going to have, like, family menus or, like, big orders that you can get, like, a bundle. So look at that and see maybe if that helps you there. Use the apps from the fast food restaurants. Sometimes they have, you know, special perks. The other thing that you can do here, like KFC, for example, is just starting rewards. So there might be new brands that are going to start some rewards. And get this, you see the second item on this list? I find this quite controversial. I find this quite controversial.
Tell me.
Look. Well, I mean, I've been known to order a kid's meal when I'm ordering all my other kids', you know, meals. But if I'm going to go and splurge at McDonald's, I know exactly what I want. I don't want a little hamburger in a little box. I really do want quarter pounder with cheese, the whole bit. You know, so if you want to save a couple bucks, maybe the kids' meal's right for you. But I don't know. I'm personally not in that camp.
Christine Romans with a controversial take. I mean, you're really planting your anti-kids meal flag, girl. It is on the record. We appreciate your honesty.
I do not like to editorialize, and I don't like anybody to know my opinion except about the kids meal.
Fair. Love it. Got you. I got you back on that one. Christine, thank you so much. Appreciate it. NBC News covers hundreds of other stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our Western Bureau, look at this. This cargo train derailing today in Colorado. Hundreds of gallons of diesel spilling. Officials say the spill has been contained, and fortunately, nobody was hurt. They're going to inspect the tracks before things start back up again. Also out of our Western Bureau, police say somebody's in custody after climbing to the top of this thing in Vegas. That's the Sphere. If you watch the Grammys, that's where U2 was playing the other night. Apparently, this is the same guy who's been arrested before for scaling a high-rise in Vegas and climbing some other tall buildings across the country to protest abortion. And out of our Midwest Bureau, the Cleveland Guardians are pushing back the start time of their home opener because Cleveland is going to have a total solar eclipse that same day, right before the game was set to start. Officials say 200,000 people are expected to visit the city to watch the eclipse. The team says it'll put out the new start time in the days to come. Probably a good move. You don't want to be playing baseball, right? Pre-eclipse, mid-eclipse. To some promising results in cancer patients now that some doctors say could be the dawn of a new age when it comes to this disease and how we treat it. New vaccines aimed at preventing those that have fought cancer from actually getting it again are giving patients a new sense of hope. Here's Dr. Natalie Azar.
Vaccines, hailed by doctors and public health officials for unequivocally saving millions of lives. But in the wave of the COVID pandemic, as controversial as ever, with vaccine exemptions in American schools at all-time highs as hesitancy soars.
Now they want us to inject experimental gene therapy.
In this environment, the future of cancer prevention emerging. Yes, vaccines for cancer. After multiple rounds of chemo, radiation, and a double mastectomy, doctors said Jennifer Davis was cancer-free. But she still couldn't shake the fear.
The thought that it could come back, was very terrifying.
Now she's living with a sense of hope, all thanks to an experimental cancer vaccine.
Every time that I have a headache or an ache or a pain, that I don't think that it's cancer now. And to have that weight lifted has just been amazing.
In 2021, Davis became the first person in the world to receive the Cleveland Clinic's breast cancer vaccine targeting triple-negative breast cancer, or TNBC. It's currently in phase 1 clinical trials tested on TNBC survivors trying to prevent recurrence.
When that recurrence occurs, it tends to be much more aggressive, and then it becomes a battle to try and keep the patient alive.
Dr. Kumar says 42% of women who are treated for triple-negative breast cancer have a recurrence within 5 years. And doctors say before, there wasn't too much they could do. But this new vaccine, 2 decades in the works, hopes to change that. Here's how it works. Women produce a special lactation protein called alpha-lactalbumin that only occurs when they are breastfeeding. But it can pop up again in many triple-negative breast cancer cases. So the vaccine teaches the woman's immune system to recognize that protein, kill it, and kill the cancer cells in the process, too.
It tricks the vaccinated person's immune system.
Phase 1 trials show early signs of a good immune response and minimal side effects, such as lumps or irritation at the injection site. Phase 2 intends to test just how effective it is at stopping recurrence of the cancer. It's part of a growing medical movement. Instead of searching for a cure for cancer, use vaccines to try to eradicate different types. And several show promising early data.
A holy grail idea is really thinking of a vaccine in a preventive measure. Will they work as great as the promise? Because if they do, the potential really would be limitless.
It may be years until these vaccines become mainstream, going beyond just cancer survivors to everyone, if people take them. For Davis, it was simple.
It wasn't something that I was scared of or nervous about. I really was a lot more fearful that the cancer would return. And I can't thank Cleveland Clinic and Anixa enough for the outlook on life that they've given me.
Our thanks to Dr. Natalie Azar for that reporting. And while the doctors and researchers say they're hopeful about their results, they also say access is still a challenge here. This form of breast cancer is twice as likely to happen in African-American women. So doctors are encouraging people to participate in these trials to help future generations. A lot more to get to coming up here on the show, including how Pakistan's former leader is using AI to campaign from jail. We've got that in just a minute. So tonight's original now with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And tonight it's Pakistan with 2 bombings at separate election campaign offices. Just one day before a huge election to elect a new parliament, it's killed dozens of people in a country now on edge, already rattled by a surge in attacks, as a widely popular former leader is now using AI to campaign from prison. Josh Letterman is following all of it for us.
Twin explosions ripping through political offices in southwestern Pakistan, one day before a landmark election, killing at least 30 people, officials say, in a country where politics and deadly violence have often gone hand in hand. So far, no claims of responsibility, but it's just the latest upheaval in a tumultuous election that's seen major arrests, rallies shut down, covert campaigning, and even artificial intelligence, all shaking Pakistan's political system to its core. One of Pakistan's most popular politicians, former Prime Minister and cricket star Imran Khan, is in prison, recently convicted of exposing state secrets and other charges. Allegations his supporters say were cooked up by Pakistan's powerful military as part of a crackdown to keep Khan and his party, the PTI, out of power. But with Khan behind bars, his PTI party is waging one of the most unconventional campaigns in modern history, holding virtual rallies on Facebook and TikTok and relying mostly on women for in-person campaigning. The police can't easily detain women, this volunteer says. And get this, his party says it's now using AI voice generation to create new Khan campaign speeches posted on YouTube based on notes from lawyers who met with Khan in jail. Our people are being oppressed and their families are also being harassed, the voice says. But in a world of deep fakes and misinformation, could AI-generated campaigning open up a Pandora's box? How can voters know what's real?
What we see in foreign elections in Pakistan and elsewhere is almost like a practice run of what we're going to see in our own elections in November 2024. So this is a canary in the coal mine.
The parallels in American politics are already clear, like whether former President Trump could be president if he were convicted and sentenced to prison, and how he or any other candidate could hypothetically blast out AI-generated messages from behind bars, a hospital bed, or even from the grave.
We need 3 things: education, stamping of automatically generated content, that's called watermarking, and the third thing is advanced detection technology.
Those solutions a ways off, putting the whole system's credibility at stake. Whether voters believe what they're seeing is authentic and that elections are free and fair.
Josh Letterman is joining us now. Josh, it is a fascinating look at, frankly, a lot of different threads in Pakistan here. When it comes to the AI piece, to be clear, what's happening there as it relates to AI is apparently sanctioned by this candidate. The big concern, right, is what happens when it is not sanctioned, when that tech is used without permission from a candidate.
That's exactly right. We've already seen examples of that in the United States, Hallie. It was just last month that President Biden was the victim of a robocall obtained by NBC News that purported to be the president calling voters in New Hampshire, telling them not to bother voting in the primary there. It was not him. It was not his voice. And in fact, AI experts who analyzed that call for NBC determined that it was almost surely a deep fake that was generated by AI. And so the threat is already here, because you are going to have some candidates who are doing this intentionally, who are doing it with the candidate's permission, such as Imran Khan in Pakistan. But then there is the risk of doing it without candidates' consent. And the question is, how are voters supposed to be able to tell the difference? Now, in the U.S., the Federal Election Commission is under pressure to actually regulate this. They have said they're considering it. They have not made a decision. And there are also calls for new laws in the United States to make it mandatory to actually label something that is a deep fake as AI generated, so that people know exactly what they are getting. But so far, this is really the wild, wild west, Hallie.
Josh Letterman, it's just so fascinating. We're so glad to have you bringing it to us tonight. Thank you. Coming up here on the show, also overseas, what Prince William just said in one of his first outings since his father's cancer diagnosis. Prince William speaking for the first time today since his father's cancer diagnosis, as William is now back to royal duties since his wife's surgery. Because remember, Princess Kate was also in the hospital for a bit. So what did he say? Watch.
Your Royal Highness, how grateful are you for the public support you've received in recent weeks?
I really appreciate it. That's my best. Thank you.
So you hear him there, asked about being grateful for the public support. The prince is getting to a gala dinner tonight to raise money for a London charity. And earlier today, hosting a ceremony to hand out awards on behalf of his father. Remember, the king is stepping back now from public duties for a bit while he deals with his cancer diagnosis and apparently gets some treatment. This is William's brother, Prince Harry, heads back home to California after visiting his father. Just about 24 hours ago, you see the prince's motorcade pulling in there to Buckingham Palace. Royal expert Tim Ewart is joining us now. Still some questions about what this cancer diagnosis is related to, what the treatment looks like. And now you have the sons stepping in. Prince Harry already home, very quick visit. Prince William obviously stepping into the public spotlight more.
Yes, Prince William had really an opportunity tonight, Hallie, to give a bit more information to the public about his father's condition. After the clip that you've just shown, he went on to make a speech, and this was a fundraiser for the air ambulance service in London. Now, he chose, I think quite pointedly, not to say anything about his father's condition at all, merely to thank people for their messages of support. And, you know, we talked initially about King Charles, as he now is, being very open about his condition. But the palace are traditionally reluctant to talk about medical details when anybody in the royal family is ill. And we don't know any more than we did after that very brief statement a few days ago. So what kind of cancer is the king suffering from? We don't know. What kind of treatment is he receiving? We don't know. The palace has said he's obviously in good spirits and so forth. But we know no more details than that at all. And that only really just leads to speculation.
I'd love to get your sense of this, Tim, because sometimes our international-based correspondents, you know, we have a mostly but not entirely American audience, and sometimes our correspondents who live overseas, especially in London, will say, hey, things are sometimes covered a little bit differently in U.S. media than in the British media. Can you give us a sense from your perspective of how this is being received, this critical moment for the royal family, this very high-profile moment for King Charles in the U.K. specifically?
Well, you know, Hallie, I thought it was quite revealing watching that clip that you just showed of a question being shouted at Prince William. It seemed to me rather significant that whoever was there asking the question didn't at least say, "How is your father? What kind of, is he in good spirits?" The media here tippy-toes around the royal family on occasions like this. They speculate, but it's not the same as it is in the United States. We're not as blunt, we're not as direct with the royal family, particularly over issues of health. And we respect the privacy of the royal family. Maybe I would have thought a more direct question perhaps could have been asked of Prince William tonight, but it wasn't.
Tim, we're glad to have you, your perspective, your analysis, as always. Thank you so much. Appreciate you being with us. And that does it for us for this hour. We've got more coverage picking up right now. We're coming on the air with breaking news in the Middle East. New U.S. retaliatory strikes in just the last couple of hours, killing a key commander after the deaths of U.S. troops in Jordan. We're going to take you live to the region with more on how it happened and the brand new details we are just getting in the last 15 minutes from a U.S. official as to how this all unfolded. Plus, the massive search and rescue out west for 5 Marines whose military helicopter disappeared in the middle of a huge storm. The chopper found. The Marines still missing. The latest on the hunt to try to save them next. Then even more storms, already deadly, are on the way to the West Coast as folks are just starting to dig out of mudslides. The record rainfall, the flash flooding. We're going to bring you the latest. And the brand new details from Disney's CEO on everything from that big sports streaming deal to gaming to, yes, Taylor Swift. A look at the exclusive interview from our friends over at CNBC. Then, no winner. Literally in the Nevada primary. Nobody, the option nobody actually won. We'll tell you what Nikki Haley's doing to try to move past it in tonight's breakdown a little later on in the show. We got to start, though, with some major breaking news just into us from the Middle East, with the U.S. military launching a new drone strike in Iraq. You are seeing some of the aftermath here. Look at this. This obviously seems to be a car on fire. The Pentagon says this strike has killed a senior militant commander who they say is directly responsible for planning that deadly attack on U.S. troops at a base in Jordan a couple weeks ago. You're seeing more of the fallout from that retaliatory strike just today there. We're getting some new details in just the last 15 minutes about how all this unfolded, with a U.S. official telling NBC News that the president ordered this strike early last week, that Iraq was notified right after the strike, not before, that they waited for the timing to be right before actually initiating this. The latest move builds on the first round of retaliatory strikes in response to that attack that killed 3 American service members and hurt 40 more. And while this is all happening in Iraq, we've got to paint the bigger regional picture for you here, too, as it relates to what's happening in Gaza. Because these Iran-backed militias say as long as Israel keeps up the fighting there, these other groups will keep up their attacks in some other places, maybe against Americans. So where does that Israel-Hamas war stand? It seems like hope may be slipping away for the potential for a ceasefire. You've got Secretary of State Tony Blinken, there he is, in Israel tonight, trying to piece together a deal that isn't looking super promising because the Israeli prime minister, who's there on the right, is rejecting this new offer from Hamas. We've got team coverage on all of it developing tonight. Raf Sanchez live for us in the region in Tel Aviv. Kelly O'Donnell posted up near the White House. And Raf, let me start with you on what we're learning about this new strike and what could come next.
So, Hallie, this strike taking place in eastern Baghdad around 9:30 p.m. local time. That's 1:30 p.m. D.C. time, as you said. The U.S. military, or U.S. official rather, saying that this strike was in the works from the moment that President Biden gave the U.S. military the order to retaliate following that deadly drone attack in Jordan that killed 3 U.S. service personnel. This strike killing a commander with Kateb Hezbollah. That is one of the Iranian-backed militant groups that has been operating across the Middle East and is responsible for this wave of well over 100 attacks on U.S. facilities since the start of the Gaza war. Now, this appears to have been a precision drone strike targeting a car as it moved along a busy street in Baghdad. The U.S. military says it is conducting a battle damage assessment, but at this point, there is no indication that any civilians were harmed. It is worth noting, Hallie, the U.S. did not inform Iraq ahead of time The Iraqis were very upset on Friday at this wave of U.S. strikes, which took place largely in desert regions in the west of the country. This was a strike in the heart of the Iraqi capital. It is much more sensitive. You can see enormous crowds nearby, and this is likely to put further strain on the relationship between Washington and Baghdad. Hallie.
Raf, I'm going to ask you to stand by for just a second because Kelly O'Donnell, I want to go to you on this one here. Raf talked about the sort of Iraqi factor in all of this with the notification process. That's one of the new details that we're getting in just the last couple of minutes here from a U.S. official. Tell us more about what you are hearing and some of the calculations inside the White House. We knew that this response to the attack in Jordan would be a campaign, that the U.S. would retaliate over a period, not just of a single day, right, but over a period of days or weeks. Walk us through it.
Well, good evening, Hallie. You and Raf have laid out all the pertinent new details. But for some context, I think it's important for our audience to understand there are different kinds of strikes that have been playing out. There have been those that are in direct response to the drone attack in Jordan that killed 3 American soldiers and injured a few dozen others. That's what this is about tonight. And then separately, there is an ongoing campaign that involves the U.S. and allied partners that is attacking the Houthi insurgency, if you will, that has been carrying out its own campaign of attacking commerce on the water in the region, connected to Israel, but not in every instance. So there are military strikes we've been hearing about over a period of days, but their intention and their motivation really come from a couple of different parts of the Pentagon playbook. So tonight, again, is about a response to the attack by drone in Jordan that killed Americans. We were told that the president had approved this as a part of a menu of options that the military was considering. And then, as is always the case, when the strike actually takes place, that is a battlefield assessment by those commanders who have been empowered by the president's authority to make a decision at the right time. That can include things like tracking that vehicle, of course, to determine is the suspected commander in that vehicle. As Raf indicated, no civilian casualties have been detected at this point. And we have the imagery from the ground of the burning car, which gives you a sense of how chaotic it can be. But the U.S. is saying that they believe they had 1 kill in this strike of someone they believe is directly responsible. So that gives you a sense of how this all fits together.
And there's also, Kelly, as you give us the context that you so expertly and capably do, the broader diplomatic regional picture here with the Secretary of State in the region for the 5th time now since the war between Israel and Hamas began.
What a protracted, difficult set of problems that have been for generations, and that is on vivid display when you see Antony Blinken meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu and trying to resolve issues that have been tearing at the heart of Israel and Gaza over these last few months. Is there a pathway to try to get a post-conflict idea of how the U.S. believes, and the president certainly believes there should be a 2-state solution? Netanyahu's still taking a very hard line and wanting to make certain they can eradicate any military capability of Hamas inside Gaza. So it is a sensitive time, and certainly, as Raf indicated, when you have a strike inside another sovereign country, one which we have a partnership with Iraq, that is always highly sensitive. Hallie?
Kelly O'Donnell, live for us there outside the White House. Kelly, thank you. Raf, let me go back to you as we talk about the diplomatic piece of things, as we talk about the Secretary's trip, as Kelly has laid out, and as we talk about the potential for some kind of a possible ceasefire. These militant groups, as we alluded to at the top of the show, say they're going to keep up their attacks so long as this war continues. And yet, right, we are also seeing Benjamin Netanyahu again today being very clear that these attacks will go on, and that has been his position from the start.
That's right, Hallie. And we have a pretty serious gulf between Israel and Hamas tonight. Hamas is saying it will not release the hostages without an agreement to end the war. Israel saying it will not end the war until it destroys Hamas. And Secretary of State Blinken here in Tel Aviv tonight has the unenviable task of trying to bridge that gap, that gulf, what feels like a zero-sum situation. It feels like if there is going to be wiggle room, it may involve Israel saying yes to the first stage of this proposed ceasefire deal without necessarily committing to an end to the war in Gaza and withdrawing all of its forces. That would allow both sides to say they haven't yet cross their own red lines. But this is a very, very difficult diplomatic path. Hallie.
Raf Sanchez up late again for us tonight in Tel Aviv with so much news in the region. Raf, thank you so much. Let's bring you back here to home because right now there is a race against time to find 5 missing Marines whose helicopter flew through a dangerous winter storm out west but never got to where it was going. The whole thing's developing really fast, so here's what we know. These Marines, I want to show you this on the map here. You see it. They plan to fly from an Air Force base north of Las Vegas to a Marine Corps station in San Diego. But now officials say they have eyes on this crashed helicopter somewhere else in Pine Valley. That's about 50 miles east of where they were headed. They haven't found any of the 5 Marines yet. These Marines were on what's called a Super Stallion, CH-53E. It's similar to what you're looking at here. This is a chopper that's seen its share of problems over the last few years. And with this search more broadly, one of the big issues is that it's still snowing, still raining. They can't search from the air, and this isn't even easy terrain to look through in the first place.
It's rugged terrain out here. There's lots of rocks. There's truck trails that go through the area, but in the mud and the snow, it can become treacherous to travel.
All of it's leading to new questions about the safety of the military's helicopters. Remember, this is happening just a couple months after 8 service members died in Japan when an Osprey crashed, and that entire fleet ended up grounded. Dana Griffin is live for us where this search is happening in Pine Valley. What do you know, Dana?
Right now, Hallie, there's no update yet from officials on if they have found those 5 Marines. We do know they found that helicopter around 9 o'clock this morning. And if they have found those Marines, they are likely to notify the next of kin first before they even release those names. Right now, we have seen search and rescue crews coming here to the staging area. We just saw a caravan within the last 30 minutes. We could see their vehicles covered with mud and snow. As you mentioned, this is a very steep, rugged terrain. So right now they are only able to search on foot because of the weather that has been coming and going, the rain, the snow. They cannot fly any aircraft to try to locate them sooner. So this aircraft has, as you mentioned, has had a troubled past, but it's unclear if weather played a role or if this was possible operator error. But those are obviously things that investigators will be looking into as this investigation continues. Hallie?
Talk about this helicopter in particular, this kind of helicopter, the Super Stallion, because there have been some flags raised in the past about it.
Absolutely. So the Super Stallion is known for carrying heavy equipment. There was another crash that happened in California over 5 years ago involving that same type of helicopter. In that crash, 4 Marines were killed. Now, this helicopter has been used since the 80s. It's one of the oldest in the fleet. Only about 28% of the Marines use the 147 of the CH-53Es. They can only, only 25% of these helicopters can fly on any given day as of 2016 because of some of these crashes, including one that happened in January of 2016, which killed 12 Marines. We know that there was also that crash in 2018 that killed 4. And so there is a concern about whether there was a possible mechanical issue on board. Again, it's still too early in the investigation to determine that, but that's something they will likely be looking into once they get that aircraft and start to investigate. But right now, Hallie, the focus is on locating those 5 Marines. That is going to be the focus throughout the night. And the hope here is that all 5 are still alive and maybe they were able to make it out. That's actually an interesting thing that they mentioned during the press conference, is that if they are alive, they had equipment to keep them warm in this cold weather. So that is obviously the hope that they are safe. We'll keep you updated once we learn more. Hallie?
Dana Griffin, thank you so much for that update. It is that big storm out west we've been talking about, as Dana referenced, that makes that search and rescue harder. Part of a storm system that has turned deadly elsewhere in California. 4 people killed, with this messy mix of snow and rain leading to very muddy conditions. Nearly 500 mudslides across the state, maybe more to come. And so much rain that 8 million gallons of raw sewage spilled out onto the streets and beaches of L.A. I want to get to meteorologist Bill Cairns because, Bill, even after all this, there is another storm on the way, and that's particularly dangerous because of how wet the ground is right now.
Yeah, we just saw Los Angeles go under a new flood watch. They had been taken out of it because they are concerned with the same thing as you just mentioned, Hallie. Yes, it's only going to be maybe 4 hours of rain, but it's going to come down hard, and they're worried about the hillsides that are barely holding on, that they could give way, additional mudslides. So the storm we're talking about moved on shore this afternoon. Areas San Francisco and the Bay Area, you're done. The storm is moving very quickly, so that's the difference. The last one stalled. This one is flying through, and it'll be knocking on the door here not too long in areas from Santa Barbara and Los Angeles. It'll be after the sun sets, more or less L.A. We're talking more towards the midnight. Santa Barbara probably around 10 p.m., but you can already see the rain moving into San Luis Obispo, and that will kick to the south. I mentioned Los Angeles went under the flood watch. We're also all the way down from Oceanside to San Diego. That's about 19 million people once again, big, huge population centers. We're worried about the hillsides giving way, the mudslides or debris flows in the heavy rain, and obviously anyone below that to the south. So the mountainous areas, 1 to 3 inches of rain. L.A., San Diego, downtown areas still could get about 3/4 of an inch to an inch. Before this storm, this would even be a significant rain event on a normal day in L.A. Of course, you just finished up with 8 inches in this last storm. And looking ahead, once we get done with this tonight, we get a break. So Friday looks good. We dry things out. Sunny skies on Saturday. We love that. That looks great. Sunday looks good, too. Hallie, the next significant wet weather period that's going to happen in the West, this is going to be towards after Valentine's Day, the week after that. Weather pattern change across the country. Much of the country gets significantly colder than normal. We all know how warm it's been across the country, so this will be a little shock to the system. And then we're going to start getting back to a little more El Nino-ish pattern with storms coming into the west. So we get about a 7-day break, and then we should get another sequence of storms. Hopefully not as bad as this last one, but that's your heads up. We got about a week.
Bill Cairns, you're staying busy, my friend. Thank you very much for bringing us the latest. To Washington now, and the slowly sinking ship that is the Senate border bill, which now has a lot of stuff in it except for the actual border piece of it. And to be honest, it's not looking good for this version either. You've got Senate leaders trying for hours now to try to take a key procedural vote and save what they can from this big bill. As our team puts it, an attempt at resuscitating what now looks like yet another doomed version of this legislation. It is a bill that would salvage, or at least try to, some aid to Ukraine, aid to Israel, humanitarian aid for Gazans, support Indo-Pacific partners against China, and fend off trafficking of deadly fentanyl. But obviously you see that big red X, nothing related to the border. That's because those pieces of this proposal were torpedoed by Republicans, despite, of course, their push for border security in the past. Adding to all the dysfunction, by the way, this is coming a day after 2 Republican failures in the House, after they did not impeach the Homeland Security Secretary as they hoped, or pass aid for Israel. Here's what one of the 4 members who helped tank the impeachment vote had to say after.
The big vote you took, you worried about implications back at home?
I mean, that can't be the North Star that guides your votes on matters of principle.
NBC's Sahil Kapoor is up on Capitol Hill for us, and I was struck by the latest information from our producing team and your team that's there on the Hill, Sahil, which is this vote is still open, which in plain English means nothing is actually happening at the moment because this whole thing seems kind of doomed. Is that a fair read?
It's certainly a waiting game right now, Hallie. The vibes among Republicans about this supplemental and foreign aid package without a border deal went from somewhat positive in the morning to somewhat negative right now. This vote has been held open for hours. Basically what's going on is Chuck Schumer, the majority leader, is giving Republicans time to get in a room, figure out their angst, sort through what they're dealing with right now, and come back to Democrats and say, this is what we want to move forward with this. Right now, there are 60 votes needed for this package, and they don't have those 60 votes yet. Only 8 Republicans, as I speak, are voting to move forward with this. Eventually, that threshold from a simple majority to advance is going to rise to 60, and this is going to be filibustered. So Schumer wants to know from them specifically what their demand is, and right now they're stuck in a bit of a doom loop because 4 months ago they said no Ukraine aid without border security. Democrats ultimately came to the table and said, okay, let's do a border deal. They cut a deal. Republicans picked their negotiator. He signed off on it. Mitch McConnell, the minority leader, signed off on it. Then Republicans knifed it and said that was not good enough. Now they're back to Ukraine aid. Are they going to move forward with it without a border package? Some Republicans right now, which is part of the angst, are saying we're not going to move forward with it. So it's a doom loop headed to nowhere unless something changes in the foreseeable future. This is probably headed nowhere.
That just even that the doom loop headed to nowhere, like it's just so vivid, right? And like I will tell you that when we talk about dysfunction writ large in Congress, right, gridlock, chaos, I hear pushback sometimes from people around the Hill who are like, well, wait a second, we actually do stuff, the media just doesn't necessarily cover it, right? Like smaller pieces of legislation, et cetera. Give us a gut check, because if you look at approval ratings for Congress right now, Gallup polls this very consistently, they have for years now. I mean, 79% of Americans disapprove of the job that Congress is doing. It is the thing that unites probably most of us, right? If you look at where the numbers are, 8 in 10 Americans don't like the job that they're doing here on Capitol Hill, in the building where you're standing. How are we supposed to be thinking about this in an election year? Can Congress get anything done, or are we looking at gridlock until a new Congress gets voted in?
Well, Congress does do small things. You know, they name a lot of post offices. They do a lot of small bipartisan bills as well that don't get a lot of attention. Yes, it's true, those things happen, but those things don't have major consequences, to most people's lives. They don't deliver a tangible improvement to their lives or to global affairs as it exists in this situation. So I think the American public just has higher expectations of Congress than what they are seeing right now, which is why the approval ratings are so bad. I think a lot of voters, especially older voters, remember a time where Congress wasn't so dysfunctional and they have a different standard for what to expect. And a lot of younger voters are just frankly tuned out because they think Congress is run by a bunch of old people who don't understand what they're going through and who don't care about their wishes.
So just like a super quick question, I know we're out of time. Do you think, just as somebody who has covered the Hill for a long time, based on the reporting that you're doing and the people you're talking to, can it be fixed? Can we get to a place down the road where the system works again?
It depends on the election. In the foreseeable future, it depends on the election and who wins the election. There are certain lawmakers and certain factions who have become very comfortable with chaos, and those are the MAGA-aligned, Trump-aligned factions in both the House and the Senate. I think that's become very clear right now in the recent, recent history. But it's going to take an election at the very least, Hallie, to sort through this.
Sahil Kapoor, we'll see what happens in November. Thank you so much. Let's get to some new numbers out today showing that for the first time in 2 decades, the U.S. is buying more stuff from Mexico than from China. So it's more likely that the toys, the shoes you're buying are made there, and businesses are turning to Mexico for stuff like car parts and raw manufacturing material. Why? A couple factors: end of the pandemic, years of escalating tensions between Washington and Beijing. Brian Chung is joining us now. This has only happened a couple times in recent history, right? Only twice in the last 30 years have we seen trade between the U.S. and China drop like this. Back in 2018, and then again during the Russian invasion of Ukraine with some sanctions. What's the dynamic now, and what can we expect?
Well, as you mentioned, there are a few things here. There's the politics, but there's also COVID as well as some other factors here. So let me explain. As you mentioned, interesting to see that Mexico eclipsed China in terms of major trade partners with the United States. Trade with China, get this, down 20%. Mexico went up by almost 5% just between 2022 and 2023 as well. We need to chart this out to understand the context. So check this out, right? Again, China in the blue line here, Mexico in the yellow line here. These are imports coming into the United States from those two respective companies. And take a look at China. It's been kind of bouncing up and down. You see 2018, the trade war with Trump having initiated against China. But then we saw that rebound post-2020, and a lot of that was because Americans were buying a lot of things after they were trapped inside for a year, went out, bought a lot of goods. A lot of that came from China. So some of the come down that we're seeing here is just a normalization of Americans not needing to buy as many goods, not doing that revenge spending anymore. But another interesting thread here that could be part of the gravity down is that the Biden administration didn't scrap some of the tariffs that were put in place by the Trump administration prior to that. So there's some of that factor as well. But I want to point out also, Mexico, as the trade relationship has changed, they've really been rocketing up. You could see the trend line over time. And actually, China, you've been seeing that it's kind of stagnating over the last, let's call it 5 or 6 years. A big reason for that, China shifting to a services-based economy instead of as a major exporter to the rest of the world. So what does this all mean? Well, for things like auto parts, toys, shoes, raw materials, things that we used to get from China, well, we're getting it from other places. Not just Mexico, as I mentioned, but check out the EU, South Korea, India, Canada, Vietnam as well. So maybe this strengthens the United States relationships with these countries. But I do want to point out, just because they're coming from those countries doesn't necessarily mean China doesn't have a role in them. We have to remember they still are oftentimes the producers of the raw materials that go to countries like India or Vietnam that then get exported to the United States. So a decoupling in some cases, but of course, a lot of nuance in what is still very much a global economy, Hallie.
Super interesting. Brian Chung, big news, of course, there today with those numbers out. Appreciate it. We are hearing now for the first time from the head of Disney in an exclusive interview with CNBC's Julia Boorstin in just the last couple hours about a new streaming service that could totally change how you watch sports. Bob Iger saying tonight that, like Disney Plus, like Hulu, it is their way to get ready for a world beyond cable.
ESPN has always made a promise to sports fans that it will serve them wherever they are, whenever they want.
Disney's teaming up with Fox and Warner Brothers Discovery here. And look at all these channels you'd get if you sign up for this proposed streamer. ESPN, ABC, Fox, TBS, TNT, not just their sports programming, but like everything that they show. Okay, but there is still a lot that we don't know here. What does it cost? That's probably one of the biggest questions. Who's going to run this thing? Is it going to get here by football season? Are the leagues okay with this? Julia is joining us now live from Burbank, fresh off that conversation. We are so glad to have you on the show, Julia. We'd love to see you, especially on the heels of this. Tell us more about this interview, right? Because the question is there a concern that like a streamer plan like this, a kind of mini bundle, is going to accelerate the end of cable as we know it?
You know, that's exactly what I asked Disney CEO Bob Iger. I said, if you're offering a service like this that has all of this live sports from Disney, Warner Brothers Discovery, as well as Fox, is that just going to accelerate cord cutting and get more people to drop their pay TV bundle? Take a listen to his answer.
This is a big step in that direction to serve the sports fan that has not signed up for the multi-channel linear TV, or that maybe was disenfranchised and didn't want it. This is a way to do that.
So he was really saying that this is not about accelerating cord cutting, but rather helping out cord nevers, people who have never paid for a TV bundle, or maybe people who've already cut the cord. So it's all about meeting their customers, meeting sports fans wherever they already are. He was trying to say that they were also going to make as much money from this as they would if, say, ESPN was included in a pay TV bundle.
It's just so interesting because we've talked a lot about on this show, and like full disclosure, we love streaming here on NBC News Now. That's how our audience is watching us. But we talk a lot about how live sports really drives viewership right now. So the ESPN of it all is super interesting. What's also interesting is the way that this conversation that you had with Iger, his earnings call, Disney stock is like way up after the closing bell. He made some news with you and elsewhere about this deal with Taylor Swift that's just out, a deal with the maker of Fortnite. How do you read that more broadly?
Well, look, I think Iger, again, is really focused on meeting their customers where they are and figuring out how to connect with younger consumers. That's what Disney is always about, making sure their brands are resonating with younger consumers. And he announced in our interview that they are doing a $1.5 billion investment in Epic Games. That's the maker of Fortnite, to together create a new immersive game that would feature Disney characters as well as Disney intellectual property. This is a first for them to do this kind of partnership. Listen to his explanation of why it makes sense.
This represents probably our biggest foray into the game space ever, which I think is not only timely, but an important step when you look at the demographic trends and you look at where Gen Alpha and Gen Z and even millennials are spending their time in media. It's pretty dramatic in terms of the amount of time spent in games.
So no launch date yet for this Disney version of Fortnite or Disney addition to that whole ecosystem. It certainly seems like they're working to get it out as soon as possible. And that there's this huge opportunity here to not only use it to generate new revenue, but also to promote Disney's brands and maybe get people to tune in on Disney Plus.
Julia Boorstin, just a great interview, super newsy. We're so glad to have you breaking it down for us here on the show. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Got a lot more to get to as well right here, including the surprising thing researchers say could be hidden underneath Saturn's Death Star-looking moon. Plus, why big prices for Big Macs have some folks saying they're fed up with how much they're paying at the drive-thru. Tonight, Nikki Haley is out campaigning for the first time in a Super Tuesday state, and it's a biggie, California, with some supporters of former President Trump showing up outside. We've seen that in the past at some of these Haley events. They were yelling, some booing, holding up signs and flags. Here's how Haley responded.
There are more of us than there are of them. They may be louder, but we're mightier.
It's after a pretty big loss, or at least a loss that is not unexpected in Nevada's Republican presidential primary. Not the caucus, that's tomorrow. This is the primary, mostly symbolic. She lost not to her main opponent in the Republican race, Donald Trump, but to nobody. Here's how. The winner in Nevada's primary, technically no one.
I'm on the fence with nobody.
That's literally who won. Nobody. The option that says none of these candidates. And that's seen as a win for former President Trump, who wasn't even on the ballot. The primary last night, remember, was only symbolic for Republicans. It's the caucuses tomorrow that count toward the 26 delegates at stake in this state, and Donald Trump's all but certain to lock up those. But Trump backers, who pushed the none of the above option, hoped to deny Haley even just the bragging rights of a symbolic win.
Theoretically, a symbolic win could have given her another lifeline, but losing to none of the above ends up really hurting her campaign and any momentum going forward, whether on the fundraising front or when it comes to media attention.
But Haley's not concerned. She's long said she hasn't been focused on Nevada after the state party chose to also hold caucuses, seen as more favorable to Mr. Trump, with his more loyal supporters more likely to show up.
We didn't spend a day or a dollar there. We weren't even worried about it. It's why we haven't talked about it.
Her campaign looking ahead to the contest to come, saying in a new statement, "We didn't bother to play a game rigged for Trump. We are full steam ahead in South Carolina and beyond." But before that election in South Carolina later this month comes Nevada's caucuses tomorrow, where former President Trump has campaigned and has predicted victory already, boosted by his backers pledging to show up.
I voted none of the above for the primary here, and I'll be at the caucus on Thursday.
And then another sign that Haley is looking to stay in this race, at least through Super Tuesday. There have been all these questions of how long she's going to be in it. Her team today is rolling out a new leadership team in Massachusetts, one of 7 states that the campaign manager says Haley is targeting for that Super Tuesday election happening early next month. We will watch all things politics related as always. But first, let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Russia, apparently feeling more and more isolated because of its war in Ukraine, is now teaming up with China in the Arctic, raising some big national security concerns here in the U.S. A new private intelligence report says while Russia didn't really want China there, now it thinks this could be a potential counterbalance to alliances led by the U.S. Number 2, the Biden administration is putting in place tougher standards for deadly pollution from soot, from things like tailpipes and smokestacks. The EPA says it could prevent thousands of premature deaths every year, while industry groups say it could hurt manufacturing jobs and maybe close down power plants. Number 3, ever wanted to skip a late-night call or text from your boss? First of all, boundaries. Second of all, look at Australia. They want workers to be able to ignore unreasonable messages from their bosses after hours and fine any bosses that don't listen to that guidance. This bill is set to be introduced in the Australian Parliament later on this week, and a government official said a majority of senators there now support it. Number 4, today astronomers say there's probably a big ocean hidden under the frozen crust of Saturn's moon, named Mimas. You can see it right here. It kind of looks like the Death Star. It's giving Star Wars. The ocean's estimated to be between 5 million and 15 million years old. Experts say this moon could be an interesting spot to look at how life may have formed. Number 5, Coca-Cola is out with a new drink. Ready for it? Spiced. Coke spiced. Spiced with what? Nobody knows yet, but it apparently tastes like raspberries. There's also a zero sugar version. It's Coke's first new permanent drink in North America in 3 years. Just don't call it New Coke. The company says it's trying to bring in the next generation of consumers. So there you go, spiced Coca-Cola, folks. We cover it all right here on News Now. Coming up, the Pope clapping back at critics of LGBTQ+ people getting blessings. Plus, how far this scorpion traveled hidden in a woman's backpack. Ugh. Inflation seems to be coming for your fast food, with some people getting, no pun intended, fed up. Look at this. In one spot, a Big Mac meal could set you back $18. As high as that at one Connecticut location. It's a rest stop, so grain of salt there, but an Egg McMuffin, $7. Zooming out a little bit, the price of going to restaurants or getting takeout overall is up 5%, higher than the overall rate of inflation. Christine Romans is joining us now. So in plain English speak, Christine, we've been talking about how inflation generally overall is cooling. That seems to not be the case for fast food. But so how is it that the stuff that's supposed to be our cheap eats isn't actually that cheap anymore?
Yeah, it isn't. And quite frankly, it's labor costs and those food inputs that these fast food execs have been passing on to consumers. And I think consumers have hit peak inflation fatigue. They're saying, hey, wait a minute, $12, $13, $14 to run with my kids to get a couple things, that's not cool. And you see, even in the McDonald's earnings, the CEO says, look, we noticed that people who make 45 grand or less, it's cheaper for them to go buy groceries than to eat here. They're not eating here as much because they'd rather go to the grocery store because grocery prices are actually, in some cases, falling. So I think it's peak inflation fatigue, and you really see it at these fast food places.
Let's say these prices start to go back down, right? Because inflation overall is starting to cool off. If the prices come down, are these companies incentivized to then lower prices? We often talk about corporations jacking them up. I feel like it's way less common to be like, wow, that's cheaper than I thought it would be.
So here's what they're doing. They've been trying to get a broader income spectrum of customer, right? So they've been, kind of glamming up their burgers and offering some new franchise like Cosmix, and a lot of other companies are doing this too. But what you're seeing now is, like, for example, Taco Bell. They are saying they have 10 things on their $3 or less menu, their value menu, and they're really promoting the cheap stuff again. And McDonald's saying, this is gonna be the year of affordability. We get it. We get it that people want value and affordability. So you'll see some lower price options probably on that menu as well. And you look at many of the other places, they've seen foot traffic down. They've seen sales that disappointed. Every place but Chipotle, Haley. Chipotle raised prices 10% and saw sales and foot traffic rise. So Chipotle bucking the trend. A lot of these other companies are saying, okay, we get it. People are sick of inflation. We got to give them some cheaper. We have to make fast food cheap again.
So what are we supposed to do if we have a hankering for a little, bean burrito?
So, look, some of these places are going to have like family menus or like big orders that you can get like a bundle. So look at that and see maybe if that helps you there. Use the apps from the fast food restaurants. Sometimes they have, special perks. The other thing that you can do here, like KFC, for example, is just starting rewards. So there might be new brands that are going to start some rewards. And get this, you see the second item on this list? I find this quite controversial. Controversial.
Tell me.
Look. Well, I mean, I've been known to order a kid's meal when I'm ordering all my other kids', meals. But if I'm going to go and splurge at McDonald's, I know exactly what I want. I don't want a little hamburger in a little box. I really do want quarter pounder with cheese, the whole bit. So if you want to save a couple bucks, maybe the kids' bill's right for you. But I don't know. I'm personally not in that camp.
Christine Romans, with a controversial take. I mean, you're really planting your anti-kids meal flag, girl. It is on the record. We appreciate your honesty.
I do not like to editorialize, and I don't like anybody to know my opinion except about the kids meal.
Fair. Love it. Got you. I got you back on that one. Christine, thank you so much. Appreciate it. We got to get to now some breaking news just into us now from Capitol Hill from here in Washington. Attorney General Merrick Garland is telling lawmakers that a special counsel has wrapped up his investigation into President Biden's handling of classified documents. I'm just looking at the letter. It is just into NBC News in the last 5 minutes or so. Now, Garland is not laying out the details of this special counsel report, special counsel Robert Hur. This new letter just says that the investigation has concluded, but it could mean that we might get to see it soon, because the AG goes on to say that he will produce to Congress this report and the letter from counsel after completion of the White House's privilege review, meaning after the White House looks at it for anything related to executive privilege. Remember what this is about. It's related to President Biden's alleged mishandling of documents at his Delaware home and D.C. office. Now, remember, unlike former President Trump's handling of classified documents, there is no expectation that we would see any criminal charges against the president here. We are going to keep an eye on this. Obviously, if we get any news on the actual contents of this report, we'll bring it to you as soon as we get it. NBC News covers hundreds of other stories, international stories, every day. And because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our international teams have done it for you. Here's some of what they're watching in a segment we call The Global. Out of Ecuador, officials say the lead-contaminated cinnamon we told you about that ended up in some fruit pouches in this country probably came from one processing company. The FDA says those pouches are linked to like hundreds of lead poisonings here. Ecuadorian officials say the processing plant is not operating right now and that they're still investigating. Out of the Vatican, the Pope's responding to critics of his decision to let priests bless same-sex couples. He's calling it hypocrisy, telling an Italian magazine that nobody's upset if he blesses a businessman who, in his words, exploits people. And out of Ireland, check this out. This scorpion apparently made its way from Kenya to Ireland in a woman's luggage. Yikes. An Irish zoo there says she reached out saying the scorpion had been in her bedroom for more than a week before she noticed it. It says apparently the scorpion is now safe and sound and secure in its venomous unit. But if you needed some nightmare fuel tonight, we got your back. How's that for just horrific, terrifying? Ugh. Let's get to some better news. How about we? To some promising results in cancer patients that some doctors say could be the dawn of a new age when it comes to the disease and how we treat it. New vaccines aimed at preventing those that have fought cancer from actually getting it again, giving patients a new sense of hope. Here's Dr. Natalie Azar.
Vaccines, hailed by doctors and public health officials for unequivocally saving millions of lives. But in the wave of the COVID pandemic, as controversial as ever, with vaccine exemptions in American schools at all-time highs as hesitancy soars.
Now they want us to inject experimental gene therapy.
In this environment, the future of cancer prevention emerging. Yes, vaccines for cancer. After multiple rounds of chemo, radiation, and a double mastectomy, doctors said Jennifer Davis was cancer-free. But she still couldn't shake the fear.
The thought that it could come back, was very terrifying.
Now she's living with a sense of hope, all thanks to an experimental cancer vaccine.
Every time that I have a headache or an ache or a pain, that I don't think that it's cancer now. And to have that weight lifted has just been amazing.
In 2021, Davis became the first person in the world to receive the Cleveland Clinic's breast cancer vaccine targeting triple-negative breast cancer, or TNBC. It's currently in phase 1 clinical trials tested on TNBC survivors trying to prevent recurrence.
When that recurrence occurs, it tends to be much more aggressive, and then it becomes a battle to try and keep the patient alive.
Dr. Kumar says 42% of women who are treated for triple-negative breast cancer have a recurrence within 5 years. And doctors say before, there wasn't too much they could do. But this new vaccine, 2 decades in the works, hopes to change that. Here's how it works. Women produce a special lactation protein called alpha-lactalbumin that only occurs when they are breastfeeding. But it can pop up again in many triple-negative breast cancer cases. So the vaccine teaches the woman's immune system to recognize that protein, kill it, and kill the cancer cells in the process, too.
It tricks the vaccinated person's immune system.
Phase 1 trials show early signs of a good immune response and minimal side effects, such as lumps or irritation at the injection site. Phase 2 intends to test just how effective it is at stopping recurrence of the cancer. It's part of a growing medical movement. Instead of searching for a cure for cancer, use vaccines to try to eradicate different types. And several show promising early data.
A holy grail idea is really thinking of a vaccine in a preventive measure. Will they work as great as the promise? Because if they do, the potential really would be limitless.
It may be years until these vaccines become mainstream, going beyond just cancer survivors to everyone, if people take them. For Davis, it was simple.
It wasn't something that I was scared of or nervous about. I really was a lot more fearful that the cancer would return. And I can't thank Cleveland Clinic and Anixa enough for the outlook on life that they've given me.
Our thanks to Dr. Natalie Azar for that reporting. And while the doctors and researchers say they're hopeful about their results, they also say access is still a challenge here. This form of breast cancer is twice as likely to happen in African-American women. So doctors are encouraging people to participate in these trials that help future generations. A lot more to get to coming up here on the show, including how Pakistan's former leader is using AI to campaign from jail. We've got that in just a minute. So tonight's original now with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And tonight it's Pakistan with 2 bombings at separate election campaign offices. Just one day before a huge election to elect a new parliament. It's killed dozens of people in a country now on edge, already rattled by a surge in attacks, as a widely popular former leader is now using AI to campaign from prison. Josh Letterman is following all of it for us.
Twin explosions ripping through political offices in southwestern Pakistan, one day before a landmark election, killing at least 30 people, officials say, in a country where politics and deadly violence have often gone hand in hand. So far, no claims of responsibility, but it's just the latest upheaval in a tumultuous election that's seen major arrests, rallies shut down, covert campaigning, and even artificial intelligence, all shaking Pakistan's political system to its core. One of Pakistan's most popular politicians, former Prime Minister and cricket star Imran Khan, is in prison, recently convicted of exposing state secrets and other charges. Allegations his supporters say were cooked up by Pakistan's powerful military as part of a crackdown to keep Khan and his party, the PTI, out of power. But with Khan behind bars, his PTI party is waging one of the most unconventional campaigns in modern history, holding virtual rallies on Facebook and TikTok and relying mostly on women for in-person campaigning. The police can't easily detain women, this volunteer says. And get this, his party says it's now using AI voice generation to create new Khan campaign speeches posted on YouTube based on notes from lawyers who met with Khan in jail. Our people are being oppressed and their families are also being harassed, the voice says. But in a world of deep fakes and misinformation, could AI-generated campaigning open up a Pandora's box? How can voters know what's real?
What we see in foreign elections in Pakistan and elsewhere is almost like a practice run of what we're going to see in our own elections in November 2024. So this is a canary in the coal mine.
The parallels in American politics are already clear, like whether former President Trump could be president if he were convicted and sentenced to prison, and how he or any other candidate could hypothetically blast out AI-generated messages from behind bars, a hospital bed, or even from the grave.
We need three things: education, stamping of automatically generated content, that's called watermarking, and the third thing is advanced detection technology.
Those solutions a ways off, putting the whole system's credibility at stake. Whether voters believe what they're seeing is authentic and that elections are free and fair.
Josh Letterman is joining us now. Josh, it is a fascinating look at, frankly, a lot of different threads in Pakistan here. When it comes to the AI piece, to be clear, what's happening there as it relates to AI is apparently sanctioned by this candidate. The big concern, right, is what happens when it is not sanctioned, when that tech is used without permission from a candidate.
That's exactly right. We've already seen examples of that in the United States, Hallie. It was just last month that President Biden was the victim of a robocall obtained by NBC News that purported to be the president calling voters in New Hampshire, telling them not to bother voting in the primary there. It was not him. It was not his voice. And in fact, AI experts who analyzed that call for NBC determined that it was almost surely a deep fake that was generated by AI. And so the threat is already here, because you are going to have some candidates who are doing this intentionally, who are doing it with the candidate's permission, such as Imran Khan in Pakistan. But then there is the risk of doing it without candidates' consent. And the question is, how are voters supposed to be able to tell the difference? Now, in the U.S., the Federal Election Commission is under pressure to actually regulate this. They have said they're considering it. They have not made a decision. And there are also calls for new laws in the United States to make it mandatory to actually label something that is a deep fake as AI generated, so that people know exactly what they are getting. But so far, this is really the wild, wild west, Hallie.
Josh Letterman, it's just so fascinating. We're so glad to have you bringing it to us tonight. Thank you. Coming up here on the show, also overseas, what Prince William just said in one of his first outings since his father's cancer diagnosis. Prince William speaking for the first time today since his father's cancer diagnosis, as William is now back to royal duties since his wife's surgery. Because remember, Princess Kate was also in the hospital for a bit. So what did he say? Watch.
Your Royal Highness, how grateful are you for the public support you've received in recent weeks?
So you hear him there, asked about being grateful for the public support. The prince is getting to a gala dinner tonight to raise money for a London charity. And earlier today, hosting a ceremony to hand out awards on behalf of his father. Remember, the king is stepping back now from public duties for a bit while he deals with his cancer diagnosis and apparently gets some treatment. Prince William's brother, Prince Harry, heads back home to California after visiting his father just about 24 hours ago. You see the prince's motorcade pulling in there to Buckingham Palace. Royal expert Tim Ewert is joining us now. Still some questions about what this cancer diagnosis is related to, what the treatment looks like. And now you have the sons stepping in. Prince Harry already home, a very quick visit. Prince William obviously stepping into the public spotlight more.
Yes, Prince William had really an opportunity tonight, Hallie, to give a bit more information to the public about his father's condition. After the clip that you've just shown, he went on to make a speech, and this was a fundraiser for the air ambulance service in London. Now, he chose, I think quite pointedly, not to say anything about his father's condition at all, merely to thank people for their messages of support. And, you know, we talked initially about King Charles, as he now is, being very open about his condition. But the palace are traditionally reluctant to talk about medical details when anybody in the royal family is ill. And we don't know any more than we did after that very brief statement a few days ago. So what kind of cancer is the king suffering from? We don't know. What kind of treatment is he receiving? We don't know. The palace has said he's obviously in good spirits and so forth. But we know no more details than that at all. And that only really just leads to speculation.
I'd love to get your sense of this, Tim, because sometimes our international-based correspondents, you know, we have a mostly but not entirely American audience, and sometimes our correspondents who live overseas, especially in London, will say, hey, things are sometimes covered a little bit differently in U.S. media than in the British media. Can you give us a sense from your perspective of how this is being received, this critical moment for the royal family, this very high-profile moment for King Charles in the U.K. specifically?
Well, you know, Hallie, I thought it was quite revealing watching that clip that you just showed of a question being shouted at Prince William. It seemed to be rather significant that whoever was there asking the question didn't at least say, how is your father? What kind of, you know, is he in good spirits? The media here tippy-toes around the royal family on occasions like this. They speculate. But it's not the same as it is in the United States. You know, we're not as blunt, we're not as direct with the royal family, particularly over issues of health. And we respect the privacy of the royal family. Maybe I would have thought a more direct question perhaps could have been asked of Prince William tonight, but it wasn't.
Tim, we're glad to have you. Your perspective, your analysis, as always. Thank you so much. Appreciate you being with us. And that does it for us for this hour. We've got more coverage picking up right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.